Get off that lake or you're going to jail. That's what the HOA president screamed across the water while 3 patrol cars lined up on the shore, red and blue lights spinning, cutting through the foggy morning like a bad dream you just can't shake. And there I was, just trying to find some peace in my own boat on the lake I'd paid for, listening to a woman shout orders like she owned the whole world. You ever have a moment where you look around and wonder if everyone else has lost their mind except you? Yeah, that was me right then. What she didn't know, and what most people never bother to find out, is that the old rusted post she was standing in front of, half hidden in the cattails, wasn't just some forgotten marker. It was federal property, the kind that comes with serial numbers, regulations, and more government muscle than any HOA could ever dream up. And let me tell you, the second I realized what I was seeing, I knew this was about to get a whole lot bigger than anyone expected. The morning mist was still hugging the water when the sirens shattered the quiet. 3 cruisers rolling in, hot officers with their hands on their belts waiting for me to do anything wrong. It was the first time in 3 months since my wife Sarah passed that I'd felt anything like peace. Guess that was too much to ask for, huh? Folks in town had been whispering that HOA complaints were getting police attention faster these days, something about repeat offenders escalating situations. Apparently, I'd just been promoted to troublemaker. A woman climbed out of the lead car, the kind of stride that says she planned this days ago. Hair silver and tight, crisp white blouse, documents in hand. That had to be Celeste Fairmont, HOA president, the name folks say with a shiver or a sigh at every barbecue. "Sir, return to shore immediately. You're trespassing on private property and contaminating our water supply," she called out, voice sharp as a winter wind. 3 officers, all business, flanked her. I started my old outboard mind racing as I drifted to shore, flashes of buying this place coming back. The agent's nervous smile, motivated seller needs to liquidate quickly. The deed had water rights spelled out, plain as day paperwork, so squeaky clean it made me suspicious even back then. Now I was starting to realize why. See, I'm a land surveyor, 22 years of reading boundaries, tracking corners, working with federal maps. Most people look at trees and fences. I see history, secrets, and lies if you know what to look for. So while I was tying off at the dock, I spotted that metal post, weathered but unmistakable government aluminum, mid-century Coast Guard issue. Not something you buy at Home Depot, you know what I mean? The lead officer, barely old enough to rent a car, asked for my ID and told me I'd have to leave while they sorted things out. But the sergeant, an older guy, hung back eyes on that marker. He recognized it too, I could tell. Celeste tried to block my view, but it was too late. I'd already snapped a picture. "Mrs. Fairmont, weren't you the one who sold me this land?" I asked, trying to keep it casual, but her face cracked just for a second, fear not surprise. "That's impossible. This is community property," she snapped. But her body was saying something else, moving to hide that marker voice, just a little too shrill. "With respect, ma'am, I've been reading boundaries for longer than some of these cops have been alive. That's a federal navigation aid behind you, and if I'm right, it's been here since long before this place was privatized," I said. The young cop looked nervous. The sergeant stepped closer, reading the faded numbers. I could see him putting it together, federal marker, federal land, not private at all. Celeste started threatening legal action, but I was already miles ahead. I packed my gear, thanked the officers for their concern, and drove to the gas station to check my photos. Sure enough, United States Coast Guard marker, serial number partly visible. Sarah used to joke my stubborn streak would either get me in trouble or get me the truth. I was betting on the latter. Called the Coast Guard regional office, got transferred around, finally landed on Officer Ben Hartwell. She took my coordinates and marker info, then got real serious real quick. That location should be a federal navigational aid from 1952. We'll need to dispatch a team to verify. If she was right, then the lake wasn't just missold. It was federal land illegally claimed for decades. I headed straight for the county records office, met Pearl, a clerk with a smile that said she'd seen it all. She loved a good puzzle, and boy did we find one. Property history on the old Miller place went way back, federal land managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. Then in 1985, it supposedly transferred for $1 to something called Clearwater Development, which dissolved right after selling to Celeste Fairmont, who'd registered the company herself. The signatures were sloppy, the legal descriptions fuzzy, and not a word about that federal marker. I had Pearl print everything and asked, "How often do you see federal land transferred like this?" She just shook her head. "In 30 years, never. Not once." That's when I knew for sure someone had cooked up a shell corporation to steal federal land, and it was sitting in my lap. That night, Celeste called. Gone was the Ice Queen act now. She was careful measured. "Perhaps we can reach an understanding," she started. I told her I'd spent the day looking at those complications, and we definitely needed to talk, though I suspected our ideas of understanding were worlds apart. She tried to warn me, hinting that some things were better left alone. I told her I'd been asking uncomfortable questions for 22 years. That's what surveyors do. And Mrs. Fairmont, the truth about your property boundaries is going to be very uncomfortable indeed. Next morning, Officer Hartwell showed up with a full Coast Guard team GPS tablet specialists. They found that marker cleared away the brush, and it was pristine 1952 navigation aid 774 Delta, marking the federal waterway boundary. Cross-checked against federal records, the lake was protected, waters never legally transferred, still government property. My deed was a fraud, just like I suspected. Then things got worse. The Coast Guard surveyor found the marker had been moved deliberately, excavated reset 3 feet from the original spot, a federal crime on top of everything else. More markers were found buried or bent, hidden with rocks. Someone had gone to insane lengths to erase any trace of federal jurisdiction. Hartwell asked if Celeste had charged for access. I told her about the fishing fees the permits folks had been paying for years. "Mr. Brooks, this is a federal investigation now," Hartwell said. "We'll coordinate with the FBI." My heart sank. "What about my money?" "You're a victim of fraud. We'll work to protect innocent buyers, but this land goes back to federal status." As her team packed up, I got an official packet case number, documentation, and one last warning. Be careful. People who commit this kind of fraud have a lot to lose. 2 days later, Celeste called an emergency HOA meeting. The invite made it clear I was the villain of the week, blamed for threatening community welfare. I prepped, like I was going to court. Charts, printouts, evidence, everything in order. The meeting was packed, Celeste in her pearls, working the crowd, painting me as an unstable outsider, talking about government overreach and community values. When it was my turn, I brought up the 1952 Federal Survey. The markers, the Coast Guard findings, showed how the land was never legally hers, how the Shell Corporation had been used to steal federal property. The room got quiet real quick. Then Mrs. Blackwell, an elderly neighbor, piped up. "Celeste, I've been paying you $200 a year for fishing since 2014. Why was I paying you if it's federal land?" Celeste lost it, defending her right to collect fees. That was the moment she admitted to the crime in front of everyone. Local reporter Jake Morrison took notes in the back. The story broke online next morning, and just like that, the community tide turned. Calls from the FBI, neighbors apologizing, lawyers offering help. The big one was from Agent Tucker Grayson. "We need your formal statement. This is going to be a major federal case." Celeste tried to fight back another HOA meeting, but this time her supporters were outnumbered. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, blamed me for destroying the community. I played the audio from the previous meeting, her own words admitting to illegal fees. Agent Grayson showed up, badge and all, just to make a point. Celeste tried to adjourn, but Grayson stopped her on the way out, requesting a formal interview. That was it, the final crack. 2 days later, a process server dropped off a lawsuit, defamation, interference, $250,000 in damages. My lawyer, David Ray, called it a classic slap suit designed to silence me. But then neighbors started telling me how Celeste offered them money to lie about my behavior. And the final nail, one night I saw flames in her backyard. She was burning documents. I called 911 and Agent Grayson arrived just as the fire was put out. Celeste was arrested for obstruction and destruction of evidence. The FBI raided her house next morning, finding boxes of records proof of $300,000 in illegal fees collected from neighbors. The indictment had 12 counts: land fraud, money laundering, wire fraud, destruction of evidence, conspiracy, you name it. At her trial, I was the star witness. Her lawyer tried to paint me as a grieving widower who imagined crimes where there were none. But the evidence was overwhelming: shell corporations, forged transfers, financial ledgers, and those Coast Guard markers no one could argue with. When the jury came back guilty on all counts, Celeste was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, restitution of $312,000 to the community assets liquidated, her empire gone. Walking out of that courthouse, I finally felt like the weight of it all, the grief, the doubt, the anger had shifted. Sarah always said the truth had its own gravity, and she was right. Once it started rolling, nothing could stop it. A year later, I stood on the new public dock helping Mrs. Blackwell's granddaughter with her first fishing knot. The lake is finally open to everyone. Federal markers standing tall, families laughing, no fees, no secrets. The community rebuilt itself, new leaders, transparency, and folks finally asking the right questions. Funny thing is, I came here looking for peace and wound up fighting a war for justice, but maybe that's how it works. You fight for what's right, you give others a reason to stand up, and in the end, the place you call home becomes better for everyone. So let me ask you, if you caught someone stealing from your whole community, would you have the guts to stand up? Would you fight, even if it meant risking everything? Drop your thoughts below. Share your own stories about justice, about HOAs, about fighting for what's right. And if you think the truth matters, go ahead and share this with someone who loves a good plot twist. Because sometimes the real victory isn't just winning, it's making sure no one ever gets away with it again.